congratulations, and thank you for coming. Appreciate it very much. This is really Jim Ballard. I want to give Jim Ballard not only credit for the conference that I did in the last meeting, but this really is Jim's panel, and he wrote me at the very beginning a note here. Charles Bennett, as you'll recall, I said to you at one point, I thought that the session that you'll be chairing at our Chicago event is one of the most important sessions of the conference. That's because the broadband community and the economic development community have such a long way to go to understand each other. So, I don't know any of the panelists. We've only met on a phone call. We had an hour and a half phone call, really a fabulous call. Enjoyed meeting you guys virtually and now actually. And we are going to follow which was suggested by one of our participants in the phone call. We're going to follow right with the program here, and it says in the program guide that you have, economic development. This is our panel, and then it says economic development organizations have a wealth of experience, strategies, and resources that can help community fiber networks succeed. This session would help to help communities to understand what such organizations have to offer and how best to work with them. So, on the experience front, we're going to start with Chuck Martinez, who is the Vice President of Innovation Services. That covers, by the way, that means you can do pretty much what you like, and I think this is a wonderful title. Love titles where you can breathe into them the meaning of what your own priorities. In the Research Valley Partnership at the Research Valley Suite. So, Chuck, if you will introduce yourself further when we move on to John Longbotham next, and finally to Donald Catham. We will. I have actually introductions that I will read briefly for these other colleagues. But Chuck, maybe you could introduce your own background as a part of your comments.
Sure. Thank you very much. Again, my name is Chuck Martinez. I'm from Texas, and I drew the short straw on the panel to go first. So I'm a novice to the broadband community, so if I say something stupid, like an economic developer might say versus a broadband expert, you have to pardon my Texan talk. But I do have some slides, and I don't know if that's going to be pulled up or not, if they can hear me, or if I need to go up to do that or whatever. But I'll just keep talking while the slides go up. My background is primarily working in what you would call a boomtown environment. I'm kind of a boomtown rat. I started my career in Galveston, Texas, learning how not to do things. Galveston at the turn of the century was one of those great American cities, but didn't have the foresight to understand that it was not impregnable to the natural disasters, and away we go. And Houston evolved from Galveston's mistakes. My next community was in Laredo, Texas, and for those of you that might remember NAFTA, Laredo, Texas is the dominant inland port of the United States, where a lot of the overland cargo goes from the U.S. and Mexico. And so I wanted to go up east and found my way in the D.C. area, and made my way over to Alexandria and Prince William County, Northern Virginia, and experienced the growth that Northern Virginia has had in the late 90s, only to get recruited back to Texas because San Antonio didn't want to be Houston and Dallas' little brother and sister any longer, and so they figured, we need to get something going. How I found my way to Bryan College Station, where I'm currently at, is at that time, Texas A&M University's president was Robert Gates, and who later became Secretary of Defense Gates. He took the approach of recognizing a new route for faculty members becoming tenured. those of you that are familiar with the tenure process in university settings, you got to teach, you got to research, and you got to publish. And some of these professors were really getting on to some really disruptive technologies, and we're spending a lot of time working on commercialization of those technologies. And they were being penalized, frankly, for not spending time doing the other three pillars of academic tenure. And so he did something remarkable as the first public university in the country to adopt the fourth criteria of tenure, which is commercialization. My brothers and sisters had gone to Texas A&M. I was on a track scholarship at another university, and said, if I'm going to run fast. I'm going to run with some of the visionaries of this effort. And so I found my way to College Station, and we've been there probably less than a little over 5 years. And we've caught up, I think, with most communities as they evolve into technology communities. Take about 20 years plus to become who they are. We've done ours in less than 5 years to reach this point. So, as Mr. Ballard was saying just a moment ago in the other conference session, we kind of learned and watched from the best. And I think we're all about doing the deal. And so, as I think they're getting to this point where I can get up and talk,
how many professors and former professors does it take to change a light bulb?
This young lady may be able to.
Yeah, right.
We're done.
Okay.
What we say in Texas it's our mantra of saying hello. That's the way we say howdy. And when I say howdy, you're supposed to say howdy. So howdy.
Howdy.
There you go. So as the nature of our community, our university environment represents about 60,000 students, both undergraduate and graduate level. The university system is about an $800 million annual research machine, and it's really about wanting to have as much access to data generation as possible. And my being here, I think, is more of a reflection of our community's philosophy in what we call it innovation economic development. Other people call it technology economic development and whatever, but we call it innovation economic development. But it's at the heart of what this initiative for us is all about. And it's also fed by a university that has a strong industry affiliation, as I was describing to you earlier about this commercialization focus, that's all about big data generation. And so, we want to ride the piggyback of what the Texas growth narrative is all about. For those that you've been watching Texas here from the Great Lakes region, between 1980 and 2011, our state grew by about 11 million people. We're about 80% of our population. So with people comes jobs, and with those jobs, they want a lot of information. So what I'm talking to you about is this booming geography of what we call the Texas Triangle. This is a map that an organization called America 2050 has released that talks about these great megapolitans. And within the tech environment, of course, we have the city of Austin, which you're going to be at next year, and I'll extend an invitation for all of you who are coming to the conference. If you come a little earlier or stay a little longer in our great state and the atmosphere, come on over to Bryan College Station. We're about an hour and a half east of Austin, and we'll be happy to visit with you more about our talk today. This region represents about 70% of the state's population, or about 14 million people. This is my kind of disclaimer. I was talking with an audience member earlier about who the Research Valley Partnership is. We're not a government agency. We're not a university agency. We're kind of a tweener. And that's what people like about us, is that we can kind of get to the deal and get it done fast. We're a 501c6 organization, and as the slide implies, we're the catalyst in our community to help bring together a lot of different organizations, a lot of different visions, and unify that and really get going in terms of coordinating how our region deals with attracting industry into our community. And as you might understand, with the nature of the university, of course, workforce and innovation development is all a part of that effort. So, in advance of this conference, we were trying to figure out, what are we doing here? And, I think the thing that we can tell you as a story is that, that we are becoming the innovation capital of Texas. Texas A&M was a great institution for training a workforce, but now the sleeping giant has woken up and they're really wanting to get involved in doing some stuff. And so that has really turned a page in our community in terms of how we're customizing an ecosystem that really is industry friendly and moves at the pace of business, not necessarily the pace of government. So we're all about being bold and taking the foot off the pedal, or take foot off the brake, so to speak. So how we started this project was we came across this broadband map. And many of you have seen this, and when we looked at this broadband project and began to kind of look at how if we just switched to the fiber to home and fiber to business makeup of this map, we're non-existent. It's a dismal display of where we are at in our community. And when we started looking at it even deeper, our area is paying about 20x, not 20%, 20x more per gigabyte speed and receiving about 10x less in bandwidth. And so we're, 200 years ago, you probably get shot for something like that. But we're in a modern society, and so, we're all about understanding that no traded cluster in the world today lives without this advanced network. And if our community and our region is going to go after making the pitch to industry, not only in the U.S., spin-outs coming out of university environments, or those that are expanding globally into the states for their marketplace, we need to understand about how do we become a magnet. Because the paradigm has shifted, has been changed. It's not about seaports, it's not about airports, it's not about interstate. It's about fiber and conduits and so forth. And so we believe that we're in a really strong position to go after these innovation jobs that, as many of you have talked about at the conference, has for every one of those jobs, there's about 5 additional jobs that get created. And so when we looked at that map, we heard something called Gig U. And in Texas A&M, after you say howdy, you almost look at any Texas A&M picture, you've got someone doing this, and it's called gigging. And it came from basically the football culture of Texas A&M, looking at the Texas Christian University Horned Frogs, and you gig frogs, and so you say gig 'em. Well, when we thought of gig 'em, we thought of Gig U and thought, well, that's kind of weird that it's all the same thing. So in any case, we adopted the approach of us being the tip of the spear for us, leading an initiative that would help to bring our community into this world that we're talking about here at the conference. This Community Technology Council is an advisory council for us. It's representative of 10 governmental reps from 5 different government agencies. There's a political appointee, and then there's a technical appointee to kind of navigate those waters. And then we also have 5 industry reps to kind of keep us on the pace of being relevant. But this is a very fast and nimble group, and we meet in our war room, to kind of strategize how we go about doing stuff. So about 7 months ago was when we started this whole gigabyte initiative. And we're moving fast because, like I said, we learned a lot from everyone else who's kind of done the hard work in advance of us. And we greatly appreciate, I think, the lessons that we've learned from you, and we're hoping that the approach that we're taking, that we can also provide some kind of a model for your efforts as well. Again, our organization is the representative group within GigU, and as was mentioned earlier, there's about 18 members in that organization. So when we set up this very focused group with some short timelines, we needed to do two things fast. One is we needed to secure an expert broadband legal representative, because we didn't want to get sued, and we didn't want to get in trouble and do stuff that wasn't legal. And so we found, I think, arguably one of the best legal counsels in our country to guide us through those really awkward waters. The next thing we did was we started developing an RFI. And we got that RFI template from GigU, and that has a whole host of RFIs out there. And we cut and paste and look at the format that works and what didn't work. And if you want, you can go to our website and you can fill out a little who you are, what your organization is, and you can download our RFI and share that. Since we launched it about 20 days ago, we have about 100 people that are across the country looking at us, trying to figure out what we're doing. And so when we talk to service providers and operators, they want to know, well, where is it going to go? And so this is a kind of a rendering of our community. You can see our regional airport that services Bush Intercontinental Airport in Dallas-Fort Worth. Main campus is just right off next to it. But you've got all these whole host of business and industry districts that are emerging all around the place throughout the community, trying to pick up the activity. And when we've had guests, they're amazed at the fact that within this 600 square miles of our region, that we're literally at a breakneck speed from north, south, east, and west, constant growth. I mean, you won't look at any place and not find a crane somewhere. And so we're really moving fast. We've got about 250,000 in population, about 110,000 housing units, and within our media environment, we've got 1 million people, and about almost 500,000 housing units. But there are some initiatives that are really driving why companies want to come to our community. The first is that when Texas was laying down its fiber, they followed the railroads. And the main railroad that goes from the Port of Houston north comes right through Bryan-College Station. And so what has happened is that we're basically a disaster recovery area for the Gulf Coast. So whenever something's happening out in the waters of the Gulf of Mexico, they hit the switch, and we're in that 90-mile synchronicity zone, and we're live, helping the Houston Fortune 100 companies and so forth. There's also a 25 by 25 engineering initiative. We were fortunate to get the engineering dean from Purdue. She came down to Texas A&M and said, I want to have 25,000 engineering students by 2025, and we're at 12,000 today. So you can imagine the information that's going on that. We're also one of 3 federal vaccine centers for pandemics. That's just now happened, and now we're a foreign trade zone to the Port of Houston. So when the Panama Canal opens up and more cargo is coming, it's coming straight through our community. So how do we approach this fiber initiative? Well, ours is pretty simple. We look at the private sector helping to make the investment, build and operate the network, and make a lot of money. From the public side, we're basically streamlining the regulatory and facilitating that speed and market approach, providing access to citizens and businesses, reducing the operating costs, and growing the economy. It's the free market society approach to how we're approaching these things. So I know that today's session is all about these tools, these economic development tools.
These are laid out in the RFI, but I'll just kind of go over some of the big ones that seem to be attracting attention to the folks that want to come in and look at building up our system. And it's accessing our dark fiber, getting our pole attachments, which is the approach that Austin had offered to Google, making ready crews to help facilitate that happening, the right-of-way accesses, co-locating, et cetera, et cetera. But then there's all these other aspects, and I appreciate the comment that was made next door by the lady about addressing those that are in this economic distressed environment. And the enterprise zones in Texas go exactly at that. It's to help those parts of our community that need it the most, where the dollar of investment would go further than this somewhere else. And then it's an incentive for the companies to be able to have some tax breaks on the back end. So I'll finish my remarks with some takeaways. If you were to look at Bryan College Station and how we've grown in 7 months to where we are today, the first thing is what's been articulated here over and over again at the conference, is you've got to recognize the market opportunity. Now, we did not do a demand study or a validation study. We just knew that we had a bunch of hungry bandwidth anchors that wanted it and that were tired of paying this astronomical price and not getting a lot out of it. You want to engage your champions from end to end. Keep your stakeholders at the debt, and then also be able to get them ready to execute on these economic development toolkits. You want to assemble your A team, and I'm not joking about that. You want to assemble your A team where the decisions are made and it crosses the political, technical, and business boundaries, and you want to coordinate them with a win-win contract with each one of them. You absolutely want to retain the absolutely best consultants as part of this process. Create that community enthusiasm, the media buzz that goes with it, and you want to clearly work with your broadband service providers. Now, I use the word hungry and thirsty in here. And there's an expression in Texas, and it's probably a thing, that you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. If we have a way to entice the service provider and the operator community to really be thirsty at addressing the needs and interests of our community, not only in Bryan College Station, but in Texas and in Ohio and Illinois in general, I think the objectives of us accommodating that digital citizen that's emerging throughout our country will be far better off. So I'll leave you with a game day photo. We're playing Mississippi State this weekend, and we hold broadband as important as water, sewer, and electricity in terms of building the 21st century city. And again, when you're coming to Austin next year, please come by. We're happy to open our doors for you and see what's going on in Bryan College Station. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks, Chuck. John, let me just give you a brief summary of John's background. John brings us an international dimension. John Longbottom is IBM Canada's national executive responsible for strategy and execution of IBM's Smarter City Global Initiative. His focus is to help municipal and other public sector organizations improve and transform services by capitalizing the opportunity to leverage the growing availability of data as the world becomes increasingly instrumented by interconnecting various sources of data and by using advanced analysis to help entities become more intelligent. That's a mouthful. John works with specialists, IBM teams, and partners to deliver solutions that create new value for clients across a diverse set of functional domains. John's active in the intelligent community movement, works with organizations and agencies that promote and implement and use broadband technologies, advanced communication strategies to create foundational infrastructure and fuel higher level applications and use cases. He was recently awarded the Queen Elizabeth's Diamond Jubilee Medal for his work with communities. And John, congratulations. Go.
Good afternoon. I'm going to run through these slides pretty quickly. By the way, thank you so much for opportunity to talk to you a little bit about what we're doing and what we call an area of smarter cities. So I just want to set the context of that, and then perhaps talk a little bit about what it means to have the facilities to be able to make some of these visions and opportunities come alive. We're into this game because of a number of reasons. I shortened my typical 40-50 slide presentation down to a few slides. But it's all about a movement, and I don't want to insult the rural community, but one of the drivers is this movement from rural to urban. And I can cite you lots of statistics on how many people we're talking about, how many New York cities we're creating every couple of weeks from an urban perspective. But we have this real incredible movement of people to cities or city regions. And that's, of course, creating a whole new demand on the leadership within those institutions. And at the same time, we're having to deal with infrastructure, aging infrastructure, whether we're talking about, power failures, Eastern Seaboard example, or transportation issues. When you have traffic jams in China that last for 10 days, you've got a bit of an issue that you have to deal with. And of course, water is just some examples. We're at the point now where we're actually having to look at redeveloping, rebuilding the cities we've built over the last 100, 150 years, which is really quite an immense challenge. So when you think about putting broadband in, think about all the other infrastructure that you also have to worry about. And maybe there's an opportunity of replacing the infrastructure. I should put in the required infrastructure as well. When we look at cities, around the world, and I spend most of my time in Canada, we really do appreciate the fact that cities really want to create and improve the prosperity. And at the same time, they want to ensure that they have some differentiation. So what is a city's brand? What makes a city the place that people want to go live, work, play, worship, educate, etc.? And really, this is where we're trying to put our emphasis and our focus. It's working at that broader level to understand what the goals and objectives are of the community as a whole, and where the opportunities are to employ technology in much more productive ways. It was talked about a little bit earlier. Chuck, I think you mentioned the data, the growth of the data, and it's absolutely staggering. And this is another, so not only we have the growth from in urban, moving from rural, but we have this huge growth of data as the world becomes more and more instrumented. You can see some of the statistics up there. We've got as many phones out there as there are people in the world, and moving into a significant amount of devices that need to communicate, but they're all generating enormous amounts of data. So the idea of smart is really about connecting that physical world with the digital world, driving sensors out in places that we could never afford to do it before, but at the same time, we're all walking around with plenty of sensors that we have strapped to us almost daily. And we're putting sensors in lots of other places that are going to drive huge volumes of data, particularly with network cars as an example. But the idea is now, how do you take that data and start to make sense of it? So we've coined a fairly simple model of the fact that the world is becoming much more instrumented, and clearly based on the session I was in yesterday with the Urban Land Institute and the work that you're doing, very much it's all about interconnection and growth of networks, and everything is being connected. And our focus is really all about how do we take that massive amount of data and how do we turn it into useful value, whatever that value equation is meant to deal with. And cities, of course, are we call them complex systems of complex systems. And whether you're looking at this from a city planning and management perspective, or from an operational perspective, or from a human services perspective, there's tremendous opportunities to improve these entities. And when I talk about cities, it's not just cities, but it's also regions. What we're doing is really, we say it's really about business. If there's no value equation here, then it's questionable as to whether or not you should do it. Now, there is a whole social dimension to it, and I don't want to lose that also, because we do need to make people's lives better. And if that means investments have to be made, that you might not be able to close a business case, but that is an important strategy as well. So don't get me wrong, but it's obviously a decision that's made for all the right reasons as well. But as you can see from some of these numbers, what we try to do is to show that there is demonstrable value, that there is a business case that can close, that can give you the resources and the excitement about doing these kinds of projects, and these are just some examples. I just wanted to close with an example of the kinds of things that we're doing as a company to help build repeatable patterns that cities can capitalize on, and it's an effort that we call the IBM Smarter City Challenge. So we put aside $50 million and offered an opportunity for cities to provide proposals to us to have an engagement of about $400,000 to $500,000. And that was for 100 cities around the world. We're just finishing the last number of cities over a period of 3 years. It's supposed to be over a period of 3 years. 100 cities. We're just finishing that up. We're in our last year of 3 year period. And we work with cities all around the world on a variety of issues. Everything from digital inclusion to traffic to early childhood development to economic development, disparity, and just a whole variety. And you can actually just Google up or Bing up, whatever your preference is, IBM Smarter City Challenge, and you'll see where we've done these challenges, and within each one of those challenges, you'll see the reports, you'll see the studies, you'll see the testimonials, you'll see any other marketing or PR that's been generated from it. And they're all different, they're all exciting, and our objective is really to create some examples of cities that are trying to solve these major problems using the technology. When I say technology, it's everything from compute technology through to sensor technology through to networking technology. The technology, from my standpoint, is one of the easier things to do once you have proper context. And so we've found that this program has been so successful that we've actually opened it up again in 2014 and are accepting proposals for cities to engage in this effort. But it's just one activity that we use within our overall strategy. So I just wanted to give you a quick context of it. My perspective is really all about working at cities on a holistic basis, which includes economic development, includes technology, includes the stakeholders, and we're working through with partners, because it takes an ecosystem to make this stuff happen. New approaches to be able to create plans that are long-living, that are executable, that are governable, that are curatable, and and I really look forward to some of the other discussions and questions that may come up. So thank you very much.
John, thank you very, very much. I just might note that John Tolba, who was the retiring Chief Technology Officer in Chicago, used to work with IBM and was working on the Smarter Cities Challenge. So thank you very much, John. Appreciate your comments. Thanks.
No, I will.
Yeah. Next and finally is Don Cathan. Remember, we're following the experience, strategies, and resource lineup in your program. Donald Cathan is an area director within the Chicago Regional Office of the U.S. Department of Commerce, Economic Development Administration, the EDA. Responsibility for a six-state region, including Illinois, Indiana, Michigan, Minnesota, Ohio, and Wisconsin. Cathan graduated EDA grant-making EDA grant-making decisions, which help create jobs and leverage private sector investment. Mr. Cathan has served in the federal government since 1989 and is a former commissioned officer in the U.S. Air Force. He's a native of Chicago who earned his Bachelor of Science in Electrical Engineering from the University of Illinois in Chicago, as well as an MBA from Wright State University in Dayton, Ohio. So, Donald.
Thank you, Charles.
Wonderful.
I appreciate it. And thank you for the invitation to be here. I want to echo Charles' comments at the beginning You are to be congratulated, the Hardy Few, for the last afternoon of the last day. So thank you for being here. Earlier, we heard Chuck talk about defining needs and convening the experts and the expertise needed to help bring things to fruition, followed, of course, by John and converging the digital world and the physical world. I want to talk very briefly about the third leg of that stool, and that really is resources. You've been through a number of sessions. You've heard a lot of talk about public-private partnerships. I want to speak to one half of that aspect, and that is the public entity, public side. A bit of a disclaimer, there are a number of different federal and state, as well as local agencies who are working very hard to help assist with respect to the resources to bring fiber and networks and the next generation to fruition. I work with the Economic Development Administration, which is a small grant-making agency within the Department of Commerce. We wouldn't be so bold as to claim that we're the tip of the spear. There are a number of different agencies, like I said, that have many more resources than we do, but I want to talk to you a little bit about some of the examples and the role that we've played throughout the 6-state Great Lakes region. Okay, very good. Well, what would I be without a mission statement? That is EDA's mission statement. I won't read it to you. You can read that yourself. We really are all about creating jobs and leveraging investments. There are a number of other federal agencies that work economic development, perhaps around the edges. We're one of the few that have economic development as our sole mission. So, a couple of things. First of all, I will mention that with respect to the EDA, the Economic Development Administration, and making grant applications, our grant applicants, according to our defining statutes, are, by their nature, governmental entities, universities, Indian tribes, those public entities that we assist directly. Unfortunately, we are prevented by law from assisting, that is, providing direct grant assistance to for-profit companies or private individuals. That's what I just mentioned. A couple of examples that we played a significant role in, and these were both within the last 3 years. Up in Wisconsin, the state that I have responsibility for. One is a county-wide project, and the other is a city-wide project. In Sauk County, Wisconsin, don't know if any of you are from Wisconsin or know where that is. It's in southwestern region of Wisconsin, primarily rural community. We assisted the county to the tune of approximately $600,000 with installing their fiber optic network throughout the county. They did bring some resources to the table. There is a local match requirement to all of our EDA programs, all of our EDA grants. But the primary takeaway is that as a result of our investment in Sauk County, the city was able to leverage private sector investment and will be creating over the next 5 to 10 years as many as 1,300 jobs, high-wage, high-skilled jobs in that community, in that region, as a result of this project. They're going to be tying in industrial parks, commercial centers, a number of retail outlets, again, for the primary purpose of creating jobs and leveraging investments in the community. The other one that I want to highlight is Reedsburg, Wisconsin. Reedsburg is a small community in the same neck of the woods. Now their project was part of a much larger public works project that we assisted with. So the grant that we gave to the folks in Reedsburg was not just for laying the fiber optic network, it was for road and water and sewer. They were primarily servicing an industrial park. There were a number of high-tech companies that were interested in locating in that industrial area and needed those services in order to locate there, set up shop. Two of them, I believe, were actually constructing new buildings, hiring new workers from the region, and nearly 600 jobs will be created in that community, again, over that same 5 to 10 year time horizon. So a couple of examples that we're very proud of. Like I said, EDA is only one of a number of federal agencies that provide the types of resources for these types of projects. For example, one of our sister agencies in the Department of Commerce, NTIA, received a tremendous amount of funds from Congress under the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act, the stimulus funding, if you will, to the tune of billions, with a B, for broadband infrastructure. And so we are a relatively small player in that arena, but again, jobs and private investment are our sole requirement for the EDA grants. There's our website if you want to learn more about the Economic Development Administration. Just another resource that you may want to jot down if you're interested in federal grants, www.grants.gov. Some of you may already know about that, may have already searched that area. You can do keyword searches, you can do agency searches. You can find the NTIA applications, grant applications on that website. That is the federal government's web portal for everything grants related. Again, www.grants.gov. There's my contact information. I'd be happy to talk to anyone who may have interest or may have some project that they're working on that may be ready for prime time. I'm more than happy to talk to you. You can call me on the phone at any time, send me an email, talk to me after the conference today. Thank you very much.
Well, wonderful. There you have it. A university, one of the 37 GECU universities in Texas. The story from IBM about the smarter cities on a worldwide basis. That really is an amazing story. Really glad to see you're carrying on with it. And thanks so much for the information about the EDA and the grant system. So, are there questions here? Yes.
I got a couple questions.
Speak loud so we can hear.
For the IBM Smart Cities, so you said it's only 400,000. Could you give a couple examples how some cities have leveraged that and so far that you've done for the past 3 years?
Sure. So that money is basically to fund a group of experts. There's 6 or 7 experts come into the community, spend 3 weeks, kind of work night and day with the administration, with all the agencies, and then come up with a set of recommendations. And I'd highly recommend that you have a quick look at the website, because you'll see the actual materials, the actual recommendations, the strategies. So each of those cities will then take those recommendations and then exploit them. So we've got examples of a community that wants to change the whole nature of the essence of what it's about. They've got lots of crimes, lots of challenges, and by using the recommendations, they were able to bring 30 to 35 agencies together and start to develop a concise strategy on how you position those resources. So that's more something that pays off over the longer term. But what these things are really about is creating a roadmap, creating the spark to do something really great. And so there's a whole variety of different outputs and examples. It's not about, oh, give me the money, and I'm going to do something. Now, it's really about helping to frame some kind of a major issue. So what we look forward to is the city documenting, so what is the major challenge that they're trying to face, but they really can't either have the time or the energy or the focus to deal with it. And you bring in a group of experts around that particular topic. As I say, working with the administration, work with leaders in the community, come up with a set of recommendations to really develop a strategy. Does that answer your question?
Yes, yeah. And I have one more. That was for EDA department. I've seen you before, but I didn't know you all were doing this cable as part of your infrastructure. But I want the question is, as an area director, are you responsible for the projects and also granting the awards for whatever project there is in the area?
I have complete life cycle responsibility. That is, from the time an application comes into the Chicago Regional Office, through working it through the award process. If it is awarded, then moving it through the post-approval, as we call it, monitoring phase. If it's a construction-related project, public works, then I live with it for as many years as it takes to complete that project, yes.
So, John, let me just follow up. I think you said that IBM is investing $50 million a year in this.
No, it's 50 million overall for the past 3 years.
I'm sorry, how much?
50 million.
50 million over the past 3
Over
years.
the past 3 years.
How did the company decide to do this?
For a number of reasons. One is that we really do want to be an eminent organization. Like, we want to stand for something in the world. Number two, it's really about, this is a great business opportunity over the longer term. But it's really going to take some effort for people to kind of coalesce around these opportunities. And we felt we really needed to try and show the way. Thirdly, there's good marketing value from it. So I don't want to say that we're just a charity. It's not. It's not. Right? It's very important. So we train up 700, 800 IBMers who spend time, significant time, working with city leadership. So that's the reasons why we did it.
It sounds like enlightened public interest, enlightened self-interest, it sounds like to me. It's
Well, yeah,
wonderful. Enlightened self-interest, fabulous.
That's a good way to
Wonderful, yeah, great. So other questions? We've got another 8 minutes for questions. Yes.
Well, good. I could put Martinez on the spot.
There you go.
In the last panel, they said that you took your presentation, your thing from Chicago. I mean, how true or essence was that statement?
Yeah, I don't know if it was the Chicago way or not. I think it's kind of the KDU way. You know, the KDU template's phenomenal. Once you become kind of a trusted member of the KDU organization, you have access to every RFI template that's been issued since the beginning. And you have to, of course, cull through those to see what makes sense to your area or not. You know, the one thing that we were learning as well, that didn't seem to be picked up on some of the other RFIs, because our community is internationalizing. Obviously, with a big university like the one we have, get a lot of international traffic. We're getting folks that come into the university who've been doing business in Europe, and they're using wastewater systems as conduits. And so we're looking at, all the above in terms of getting the keys over to someone. But was it the Chicago way? I don't know. I like to say we're agnostic about picking the best to run with. If it works, it works. And, but I can tell you that we wouldn't have gotten to this point without those prior templates.
Yes, Bruce.
My name is Bruce Montgomery, and I am a board member serving with Charles Benton on the Partnership for Connected Illinois. And in the years that the partnership has been around, working to promote the awareness and the consciousness and the opportunity of broadband in the state of Illinois, Charles and myself and our team, we've had a very challenging time getting the support of private industry to come and be a part of this process. We're very fortunate that the work of the local community drew this conference here to Illinois and the south suburbs in particular. But my question and an opportunity and really an invitation to IBM, and of course, maybe you could give us some enlightenment, is we have always seen this as a public-private partnership, one that's including the whole community. And so that includes incumbents, existing providers, but particularly folks like IBM that are creating applications that drive benefit out of the use of this infrastructure. But in the conversations and the meetings and the workshops and all the different things that we've done, we've just had almost no interest of a inclusive conversation from the corporate IT infrastructure community. And some of it has even been resistant from, you know who. So, well, I mean, from, the closer you get to someone's business, the more resistant they get to being encouraging of somebody else being involved. When you're involved in the cloud, you can be ubiquitous and so you can stay murky like IBM. But if you're someone that's filling out bills every month to people's homes and schools, then they get a little more irritable. But nonetheless, the question is, how can an organization like PCI, that is all about leveraging this asset for large-scale good, just like what you mentioned, you're doing with cities, how can we encourage an IBM to come to the table? Now, having said that, I should say that Charles and I have a little leverage. I'm a Northwestern alum, and so is Jenny Rometty, your CEO, so we probably can pull some strings, and at least it relates to your company. But the broader question is, how can we get more private companies to be at these kinds of tables on an ongoing basis so we can do this work of making broadband make an economic difference to the citizens of these United States?
That is such a great and powerful question. And I can't, by the way, I have to sort of frame my comments because I'm the Canadian guy. So I'm back up north doing my gig, doing my stuff. Which could have, it has a bit of a different twist to it, although the issue is still the same. We do engage quite regularly with the movements. I'm on a couple of organizations, communities are trying to drive out broadband strategies in a context. So I'm on committees and I spend time with organizations that frankly are positioned to grow these networks. They're Canadian-based, they're international-based. And one of the reasons that I do is that we're really trying to drive the same end game. And that's taking this technology and make it more useful to drive a better world that we live in. So I can't necessarily make a comment about what we're doing in the U.S. or in this particular region, other than to go back to my colleagues and say, look, I've experienced this. There's a whole lot of people out here with great intentions and, and they're capital around and there's great ideas and templates. So how do we do a better job of working together? I don't know what your previous approaches have been. I think, interestingly enough, a couple of IBMers in the U.S. saw the value of participating in this. So they asked somebody to do it. I put up my hand. Now, I can't carry the torch too far, but I can carry it to a couple people. And I think it's a matter of, and by the way, so that's the second thing I would say is, this is a bigger problem than just having people at the table. You got to somehow come up with a framework that gets you to some end goals that we all agree are the right end goals, the mutual goals, etc. And we're working through some processes right now. I'm working with what you would consider to be a competitor of mine. I'm working with them and some other private sector players with the network developers, with the city agencies, with the community groups, to try and come up with a plan or a strategy, something that's executable. Once you start getting things that are executable, you get a whole lot of people behind you. So it's the best way, sir, I can answer the question, other than saying, there's nothing better than pulling at a heartstring of Ginny's, let me tell you. You know, I'd say, you got that, exploit it. But anyway, I will take the message to my constituency and see if there's anything I can do to help.
I would like to kind of chime in on that. You know, I think the root of the question is how much do you value the information that's going across this network? You know, and as much as we'd like to see these super angels drop out of the sky and drop, $10 million on your network, you know, the reality that we have to face is that we were going to have to do this on our own. And in our university setting, we've got a tremendous amount of corporate companies all over the world that recruit our students, and they want to make sure that they're connected. And so you have a stakeholder group, if you will, that has a vested interest in making sure that your communities are pumping with as much information as possible. I'm holding a pen here that I just came back from our groundbreaking from a company called Kaneka out of Japan. Kaneka opened up their R&D center, first one out of Japan in our community, because they have relationships with our university. Now they're going to be, it's not just necessarily, 50 jobs or 500 jobs, but it's $50 million worth of R&D experiments that's running through the gigabyte kits, and that means something to them. And so part of it, I think, is as the broadband communities is reaching out to the economic development allies, is you need to look at the Chamber of Commerce and those that truly appreciate the value of what this information is. Our effort was driven in large part because faculty and students were going on campus and they had access to the super high-speed networks, and then they'd go home and then they'd see that little dial going over and over and over again. How can we expect as a country to be able to thrive, a block away in an environment, and they go home, and of course everyone takes their work home with them.
Right.
And how do you be able to survive like that? And so we have to take an initiative that is how do you appreciate and value that information, and then after that, it's you cut through a lot of decision analysis paralysis and to get the deal done.
We're out of time with the lady in the purple shirt flashing the zero sign at the end, but let me just say one last thing to further carry on with Bruce's very good question. John, your involvement with the information economy makes an enormous good sense. And I think what Bruce is saying is how can what you learn from that involvement benefit the communities that he's working in. And I think that's his issue, is how can we extract best practices or what we learn from your smart cities investment that would be of general good to us here in our community and elsewhere. So I think that's the challenge. Have I got it, Bruce? Is that the idea?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you for coming.